Down on the shimmering Indian coastline, where the land meets an endless expanse of water, live the Titaba birds. They are tiny, fragile creatures, barely 6 inches tall, making their home right on the edge of oblivion. The mother of this particular flock understands exactly where she stands in the food chain. When she looks at the sea, she doesn't see a beautiful backdrop. She sees an arrogant, unfeeling force of nature that crushes small setups. Her husband, however, sees the world differently. He believes the shore is a perfect, peaceful cradle for their unborn chicks. To him, the laws of nature demand fairness. A mouse deserves as much respect as an elephant, and a tiny bird has every right to claim its space on the sand. But the sea overhears this defiance. Insulted by the sheer audacity of a 6-inch bird claiming equality, the ocean decides to teach them a lesson. While the parents are away hunting, a dark, deliberate wave surges up the beach and violently scoops their newly laid eggs into the deep. When the parents return, the mother is devastated. To her, this empty nest is the inevitable tax of being small, a harsh confirmation that rights only exist for those strong enough to enforce them. The father refuses to accept this. Puffed up with righteous fury, he makes an impossible vow. He will fight the mighty ocean, drying it up one single beakful of water at a time until his children are returned. Which brings us to a massive logistical problem. When a grievance is this asymmetrical, when the victim has zero leverage and the aggressor is an untouchable titan, how exactly do you force the powerful to obey the rules? The father's first instinct is to build a coalition. He flies down the beach, calling on every bird he knows to form a united front, hoping that sheer numbers will overwhelm the tide. But his peers aren't interested. The peacock takes one look at the salty, muddy work of fighting the ocean, shakes his magnificent feathers, and declines. Why risk his perfect plumage for a problem that doesn't directly affect him? The crane is a bit more analytical. He looks at the vastness of the water and simply calculates the math. A few hundred beaks against millions of gallons of salt water is a losing battle. He bows out too. This diagram shows exactly why the father's grassroots strategy is doomed. He is organizing horizontally. Linking up dozens of small, powerless nodes creates a sense of solidarity, but it generates zero upward pressure. They lack the mass required to compel a superior force. Eventually, a wise swan points out the obvious. If you want to bend a giant, you need a bigger hammer. The swan tells the little bird to stop asking equals for help and to escalate the grievance vertically, up to Garuda, the king of all birds. Solidarity is comforting, but it isn't strategy. To correct a massive systemic wrong, you have to abandon the local level and plug your grievance directly into the upper echelons of power. High on a mountain peak sits Garuda. With immense wings and a razor-sharp beak, he represents the mythic, institutional authority of the skies. When the tiny Titaba bird finally reaches him, he lays out his case against the ocean. Garuda is furious, not necessarily out of pure empathy for the little bird, but because the sea has crossed a political line. Stealing the eggs of his subjects is a direct insult to his royal jurisdiction. So the king flies down to the shore and demands the return of the eggs. The ocean effectively laughs in his face. It rolls its massive waves back and forth, entirely unbothered by a bird with a fancy title. The sea points out a harsh physical reality. Rivers bow to its currents, and even the blazing sun cannot dry its depths. Garuda might be a king, but his wrath equates to nothing more than a few gusts of wind over the water. This reveals a terrifying gap in the architecture of justice. You can follow the rules, climb the ladder, and get the regional authority, but if that authority lacks the physical leverage to enforce the law, the apex predator still wins. With the king of birds neutralized, the conflict requires an absolute trump card. The sky splits open, and Lord Vishnu descends. He is the ultimate cosmic authority, wielding a conch, a mace, a discus, and crucially, a thunderbolt. Vishnu doesn't waste time debating morality or maritime law. He bypasses the rhetoric entirely and arrives with a very simple proposition. Return the property of my subjects, or I will use this weapon. The sea tries one final bluff. It threatens to unleash massive collateral damage, hurricanes, ruined towns, and flooded coastlines if Vishnu strikes the water. But Vishnu holds his ground. He acknowledges that chaos will follow, but he makes it crystal clear that he is fully prepared to endure that chaos to enforce the hierarchy. He commits to mutually assured destruction. This updated chart of leverage finally balances the equation. Faced with an entity that actually possesses the firepower to threaten its existence, the ocean folds. It sighs, retreats, and gently places the stolen eggs back on the sand. Down on the beach, the little father bird puffs out his chest. He completely ignores the cosmic standoff that just occurred, believing his own plucky rallying cry to fight for what's right is what won the day. But his wife knows the truth. Outrage is a great starting point, but shouting at the waves accomplishes nothing. To actually secure justice against an untouchable force, you have to understand the geopolitical map, secure the right alliances, and bring the absolute biggest thunderbolt to the negotiation table.